And that's perfectly okay.
And he
I'm going to
said,
say again, we're in your home.
he said, so we need to do something about that.
No. And I don't even want you to even worry about that.
Well, I'm not. This is what he was saying when he was visiting me. He saw what was on the wall.
Oh, I see.
Anything on the wall of Riverside to say what our history is.
Okay.
So we wanted to do something about it.
You are right. If you go a step further, he said, when we walk in, how do you know that you're at Riverside? You don't even see a name.
You should ask her about that, about talking about the origins of the historical society.
Well, that's what it was about. Sitting here talking to me, looking at the wall and seeing our pictures, and it made him say, we need to do something about Riverside.
You be sure to say that, okay?
And say his name, that he was here visiting you.
And it was visiting anytime soon.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
There's a question down here. I was just looking at this to see where it got. When I ask you, can you share a little of your testimony? That would be a good place to plug that in.
Okay.
Or we could put it on the biography side. You want to close it. I think that'd be a good way to close the biography side. Don't you agree, Charles? Wherever you're comfortable, say it. Okay? I know what I would say. That's not, but I'm not you. Okay? Okay, if we're ready?
Yes.
Okay. We are currently at the home of Mrs. Betty Slusher. Mrs. Slusher, would you please state your name and spell it for me?
My name is Betty J. Slusher. Betty J. Slusher. Slusher.
Thank you. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Bresler, Pennsylvania, 11 miles outside of Harrisburg. I was raised there till I was 5. I left, went to San Antonio, Texas. From San Antonio, Texas to Huntsville, Alabama. From Huntsville, Alabama in 58 back to Harrisburg. And that's where I remained until 1965.
When did you join Riverside and what brought you to Riverside? How long have you been a member?
I went to Southern Missionary College in 1968-69. I did not do very well. My parents said, we don't want to send you back to college to spend that kind of money. So we think we'll send you to Nashville, to Riverside Hospital School of Practical Nursing. So they brought me down to Riverside in 1970. My mother was the kind of person who said I could not sit at home and do nothing. So I had to get out and find a job. She didn't care what it was, whether it was in Miss Ann's home, scrubbing the floor, whatever it was. But you must have a job. So I got out and pounded the sidewalks trying to find a job for me. And I finally got one as a nursing assistant at Fort Sanders Hospital, Presbyterian Hospital in Knoxville. And that's where I remained until I came to Riverside in 1970.
In 1970?
1970.
Thank you. What were the programs and services of Riverside that you remember? When you
Riverside, and part of this I'm going to take from my ingathering days because Riverside stayed on the hospital picture, stayed on the front page of the was a Message magazine, with the little magazine that we gave out for ingathering. It stayed on the page for a long time, and I wish I had one. But Riverside was known as a sanitarium where people came to rest. We did hydrotherapy. We prayed with our patients at night. They did deliver some babies, but it was more of a rest hospital. Yes, we started having some of the community in so that we as students had a chance to actually get our nursing in. But it was really a rest, walk the fields and the yards and just have a restful time. So we had a lot of people come just to rest.
In your biography information, I'm going to ask you to share more of that because that covers the side of your career, and that's going to be beautiful. But going back to Riverside Chapel per se, Were there offices and positions that you held in the church?
No, I did not. As a young person and as a student, yes, I went to church there just about every Sabbath. But to say that I was an officer in the church, I was not. Mrs. Lightford played a very big part in my life. As a young person, she just sort of latched on to me, and I'd go to her house for worship on Friday evening, or if there were things like going out of town, and maybe that's how I got started with Pathfinders, I don't know. But she used to, if there were federation or if there was a congress or something, she wanted me to go right along, and I might drive her car. I can remember driving and us going to Memphis. Darryl was a little boy back then, but I can remember doing that. And at her funeral, I told them, I said, it was probably with Mrs. Lightford's influence that I'm still in the church today, because she was the mother away from home who was looking over your shoulder saying, no, you're not going to do that.
Okay. What was your first impression of Riverside Chapel when you came?
Well, it was a small church. My father being a pastor, we've moved around a lot. We have been in a lot of small churches. So that didn't bother me. In some respects, it was bigger than some other churches that I have been in. But there were young people there. And that was good for me, having come from a church where there were 3 of us. And how do you keep those 3 young people entertained? There were times that my daddy drove 70 miles so that I could be with other young people. But it was a good time, I thought. And to see other young people growing up. They had a great Pathfinder club at Riverside. People like Sandra Benson and Ricky Benson and Pam Lightford and Melvin Lightford. And Mr. Chafin was the director of the club, and they called him Che Baby. Those children were so afraid of that man. If they were doing something, everybody said, I'm going to tell Che Baby. I mean, they trembled in their shoes. And I thought, wow, somebody who has that much respect. Now, I never went camping and stuff with them back then, but just to know that they were actually going out and seeing the things that Pathfinders were involved in, and me watching them get themselves together to go. Enjoy that.
What changes, Betty, have you noticed over the years from the Riverside Chapel that you came to the present Riverside?
Riverside back then, we had AY. We went to church, programs that were going on. I can remember taking my children. I worked 11 to 7. I would take my children to choir rehearsal. I would get off Sabbath morning, bathe them, get their clothes on them, get my clothes on, go to church. And I'm sleepy as I wanted to be, but I'm in church because I thought my children need to be on that pew beside me in church. Mommy needs to be there. Don't send them. You go with them. I can remember Mrs. McCoy saying when my babies were little, and I put the child across my knee, and they started to slip off. And she said, give me that baby. You're going to drop that baby. I said, I'm not going to drop that baby. I know that baby is slipping. And I can remember those days of me falling asleep and the baby sort of sliding down my lap, but I never let him fall on the floor. And I can remember that. I can remember the days of Tina McKissick, Vernon, Lori, Nicole, sitting on the back pews and we're practicing the Messiah. Those children can sing the Messiah today. Classic example, just recently, Tina was talking about going to one of the churches was having her walk in and do the Messiah, and they offered her a book, and she said, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. And the lady said, she looked at her, and every song that they sang, she could sing. She knew her notes and all. She said, how do you know? She said, if you have sat in church for the Messiah rehearsal like I have sat in church year after year, until finally they told Dr. Dixon, we want to sing the Messiah. He said, next year. That's how they got to sing the Messiah.
Beautiful.
Those were some good days when all the churches, I don't care whether you went to Hillcrest, back then we really didn't have South. I think we were forming New Life. But any church you went to and you heard that Riverside was doing the Messiah, you came and you sang. We made a great group, spread all across the stage of the old Riverside, spewing out near the piano or over near the organ, trying to, back when we wore the cream dress. Yeah, I know you were there, baby. I know that you were there. I can testify. But those were the days.
It's beautiful to hear you talk about specific events. Can you name other events that were notably Riverside Chapel that you remember that were special events? You mentioned Messiah.
The club, not the club, but the Renaissance was formed. And I sang in that. And Mrs. Lanier came to me and asked me why it was, but her daughter couldn't sing. And I said, Mrs. Lanier, I am singing in this. I was asked to sing. I had nothing to do with this. How can I get your daughter into something that I did not formulate? But I can remember us asking Oliver Swing to come and sing for us. And Dr. Dixon was good about flying down to Atlanta and getting him for the Messiah or to come to sing for us this time. This night we had Dwayne Hamilton. I can't remember the young man who played the trumpet, whose jaws went way out there for he'd been playing for years. But it was a very good night. When we did, I think the angels came and sang with us that night. And we only performed that one time, but I sure wish that we had been able to continue. Hard work went into that. I remember those days. Miss them today because people seem to think that the older you get, even before we got to where we are now, they sort of put us on the back burner. Your time is over. It's time for the young folk. I can remember the New World Singers. I can remember when Mrs. Terrell got so upset and walked out of church. When Billy Simon's grandfather got up and walked out. He called that heathen music because that's when the New World Singers were singing. I remember when Images, the choir that Derek formed, 11 years, and all we did was clap our hands and try to rock. And I can't do the two of them together. Somebody had to pull me along to get me going the direction that the other folk were going. But I can remember the looks that we got standing in church, like people did not approve of this. I remember those days. But times are changing. It wasn't that we were running around the church or jumping on the pews or nothing like that, but times were changing and people weren't ready to accept that change. As I guess I am today. There are times that the music is just too loud and it's not for me. There's some of it that is really, I call it spiritual. Then there's some of it, I'm like, they could have left that wherever that came from. And it's too loud and it's not allowing me to allow the Lord to come into my heart, they said. And I guess that's where I am today. But times are changing.
What significant role or roles would you say Riverside has played in the community, in the world church?
Well,
Significant things about Riverside Chapel.
In my travels, people ask me where do I go to church, and I tell them I go to Riverside. Oh, you go to that big church. Oh, so-and-so is your pastor. Oh, y'all do this, or y'all do that, which other churches aren't doing, Okay, all right, well, that's where I go to church. My sister-in-law is in San Diego, California right now. There's a family that went to Riverside who's at San Diego right now. And she walked up and she met them. And she said, are you familiar with the Slushers? They go to Riverside. They said they've been going to Riverside for several years. They said, oh yes, we know the Slushers. We know the mother and the father. In fact, we bowled with them. So there are others out there who are familiar with Riverside.
Okay. The civil rights movement, was Nashville or Riverside involved with that any way?
Not that I could really tell.
Okay, yeah.
I came here right as civil rights was going on and all,
Mhm.
but I really could not tell
Okay.
that we did any marching or did anything like that.
Fast forward to today, what is it that keeps you coming to Riverside?
Well, guess just not really wanting to go to anyone else's church, really not really wanting to get acclimated to somebody else's service. And so you just stay where you are.
You mentioned something earlier about, and you'll recall it to me when I told you, do you have a testimony? Can you talk about that?
Well, my testimony would be, well, I guess I'll tell you a story. When my boys were 14 or 15 years old, and I was sort of trying to help out with the Pathfinders. Billy Simons was the director. And they were getting ready to go to Camp Marie, and it was up on the, help me, Charles, we were up on the mountain where the air was short.
Howell Mountain?
Hale, Camp Hale. They tried to talk me into going to that. Jeannie wanted me to go so bad. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't get my funds together. I didn't go. And after they came back and they talked about it, I missed it. So it just, I felt I should have gone. I should have been there. My children didn't go, but the others talked about how good it was. They talked about the air was light, but I should have gone, and I made up my mind from then on. I'm going to go. When these children travel, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to go where they go. Well, shortly thereafter, Billy stepped down. They were going to move away. And he said to me, I need you to take the club. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not doing that. But what are my children going to do? My boys. What's going to happen to them? So, yes, I stepped in. I went to the conference office and I talked to Elder Edmund, who was the junior youth leader at that time. He said, you need to attend any meeting that they're having that deals with young people. I've been to Denver, Colorado, to a meeting where they were talking about young people. I went to Atlanta when they first formed, what was that symbol now? It's a world symbol. But I went and I left here on a Friday night and I drove till I got tired. I put up in a hotel and I went on to Atlanta to this meeting. Some of the folk from Hillcrest called my house to ask about was I going, and my husband said she's already gone. But when Elder McCoy found out that I had gone to that meeting, he refunded my money because I seemed to have been one of the only people out of South Central who went to that meeting. It was a North American meeting that was being held in Atlanta, but I was one of the only people who went, and he refunded my money. And that made me feel good to think that you knew about it and you thought enough of me. Could probably have been. So, but yes, we did that.
In closing out this particular section, what is it that you want people to know and remember about the history of Riverside?
I want people, as my husband was saying, when I think back to people like Elder Simon. Elder Simon was the administrator of the hospital when I came there as a student. I can remember Elder Winston.
Can you talk a little louder, just a little?
Elder N.G. Simons was the administrator of the hospital when I came to Riverside. He was also in the nursing school, and I can give you a bad thing that happened there. Just before graduation, we were sitting in one of the young ladies' dorms room, and they were talking. And some were talking bad about him, and, I was just sitting there. When I knew anything, he filled the doorway. And one young lady, she just fell back and started laughing. He didn't say a word. He turned around and walked out. He went to Mrs. Chafin, who was director of the nursing program, and told her that he wanted us suspended. In fact, he wanted us out of the program. She said, you can't do that. It's 2 weeks before graduation. You can't do that. He said, well, get them off campus for a week. Okay, they did that. I went home, back to Knoxville, and I cried my eyes out. My mother said, well, what's wrong? I said, I have been suspended for a week. She thought I said that I was pregnant. I said, no, I've been suspended. Here we are 2 weeks from graduation and I'm suspended. Well, you were suspended, but you had to come back and make that time up, which was not a good thing. But, Anyway, there were 10 of us graduating. We started with 21, but only 10 of us graduated. And had we, I think it was 5 of us there, been put out of the program, the class would have gone down to 5. I was a valedictorian. My girlfriend was a salutatorian, or it could be the other way around. But that's how it went. And this would have really have messed up this nursing program, this class.
Okay, this concludes the first section that we want to cover. Now we want to know about Betty. I want you to tell us about your life, your career, and anything else, because I know your life has been interesting and full. So that's what we like to do.
As I said, I came to Nashville in 1970, left in 71, went back to Knoxville, went back to the hospital I had been working at, this time as an LPN. I worked in CCU, which was step down cardiac care. I worked back then, you didn't have intensive care split out as you do today. SICU, MICU, NICU. ICU is just ICU. There might be a neuro patient over here, a heart patient over here, whatever. That's just the way it was. And I worked in that unit for a while. It was almost over a little bit of a year. I had some friends that did not look like us who said, "Oh, BJ, let's go to Nashville." I didn't have anything to keep me in Knoxville. Packed up my junk and I moved to Nashville. Well, I got out and found me a job. I went to Baptist to apply for a job. And when they asked me where I graduated from school, I said, "From Riverside." "Oh, you don't have to tell me anything else." Riverside was that well known. The nurses from Riverside are good nurses. They are dynamite. They know their stuff. No questions asked. Like hired on the spot. Worked 11 to 7. Worked all over the hospital. I worked 7 Central South, which was urology. People who looked like me didn't want me there, so the supervisor had to find me another home. They decided to put me on 3400, which was the oldest unit in the hospital. When you passed through the doors, you could smell the fungus, the mold. I guess it was some water buildup in the wall or something. But we had double bed, semi-private rooms there, and we had one room that was 4 beds. We got the prisoners. Okay, it was nothing for your prisoners to be chained to their bed at night. You went in there at night, administered medicine, whatever you needed to do. I had some nice stories from there. Somehow, I don't know how the one inmate got loose, but he did. And he went, the back door was right across from their room. He went down those steps. There was a nurse working with me named Thelma Stinson. I don't know what made her follow that man down those steps. She followed him down the steps. And when she got to the bottom, he started out the door, he turned and he looked at her. She stood there. No words were exchanged. He went out the door. I told her he could have killed you in that stairwell. Why did you follow him? I wanted to see where he was going. Have you lost your mind? I don't know where he went. I don't know if they ever caught him. But she followed him. I had another one where I too, during the night, they came and said, "BJ, we smell smoke." We're on the 3rd floor of the hospital, over the emergency room. Baptist Hospital. Baptist Hospital. Well, I went back there and I searched for it, and I could not find it. I could smell the smoke, but I could not find it. Well, another time, a little bit later, I could still smell the smoke. This time I had the patient get up. I tore his bed apart. That was back with the wire frames to the bed. Single mattress on it, nothing on his bed. Went through his drawers, nothing in his drawers. There was a princess chair in his room, and he had sat in that chair. And somehow, during the night, the cigarette had gone down like it here. And it was just down in there smoldering. When I put my hand down in there, my fingertips about got burnt. So I picked up the chair, walked out of the room with it, down the back steps, all the way down the steps, took it outside and sat it on the asphalt. Now, I have a fire extinguisher on my floor. My mind did not register to go get that fire extinguisher. Let's remove the source. And that's what I did. I took the chair out of the building, put it on the ground outside. I didn't think about no fire extinguisher till that morning and report. They said, but you got a fire extinguisher. Who thought about a fire extinguisher? Get rid of what's going to cause us. I can't carry these patients out of here. My responsibility is if there's harm here, I'm supposed to remove all my patients from this wing. I can't carry them. So what am I going to do? So I got rid of the chair. My brain just didn't focus on that, and my nursing career just went there.
Refresh my memory as to your school and your education regarding nursing.
I did LPN program and finished it. It was 13 months back then. It's a year today. I have, down through the years, I guess I have 60, better than 64 credits toward RN, but it has never worked in my favor to do it. I have tried to go from LPN to RN and it has not worked in my favor. So I leave it alone. The Lord must say, that's enough of that. Just move on. You have done what you're going to do and you've done some good things. Just leave it alone. I have something else I want you to do. So it's okay.
Do you feel that was your calling, nursing?
Nursing, I do. I had wanted to be a nurse since I was 5 years old. So my biological mother died when I was 5 of cancer. And I have cancer today. Not the same, but and I felt like I wanted to help others. And so,
how are you applying the medical knowledge to your situation today? How has that been helpful?
well, I have a sister that's an LPN. I don't know if I was the LPN first or she was. She's my older sister. When I told her I had cancer, she said, I don't want you to get on the computer and read all that they say about cancer. I want you to go to James 16, read it, close it, put it in your heart, and leave it there. Do not go out there searching the computer, and I have not. When I've asked them about my cancer, and they cannot tell me anything about it, it's rare, it's fairly new, it affects, it's ileomyosarcoma, it affects the myelin, which is what lines your blood vessels, your heart, any blood vessel throughout your heart. This is not something that you can say went into one organ and we can cut that organ out, and no, it's not like that. It is for me at this time, it's hitting me right here abdominally. It has affected both hips. As I told you a year ago, they took the top of this hip because of it. Okay, so with this sarcoma affecting both legs, this was my stronger leg, it's my weaker leg right now because this is settled in the hips. But there's nothing I can do about it. Each day I get it. One day is a good day, the next day is not such a good day. My walking has changed. Can't walk that far. And let me tell you what grandchildren did to me. I'm skinny. And they talk about it. They say, Granny, what's that? And they just shake it. So they went down the hall and they got those weights right there, those green ones. And they came out here and they had one in each hand. And they were doing this. Now the 5-year-old was doing this. And she gave it to me and I thought, I'm going to die. I picked it up and it was all I could do to try to do one. She said, come on, Granny. Put it up there. Put it up there. And come on. They could do it like it's a balloon. And it's taking all I got to try to do this. I said, well, okay, I guess it's time for, they're going to help whip Granny back into shape.
That is remarkable to hear your story of faith. Reading that scripture and putting it down, trusting God for every word that
We have 6.
You have 6
4 boys and 2 girls.
Those grandchildren must be super impressed to be around to help you like that.
They are
What
the
a
closest
blessing.
ones to me. The others, there are 14 grandchildren and 13 great-grands. But these 2 are the closest to us because they're here with us. some in Murfreesboro, some in Atlanta, California, you know. But these two are here. So, of course, they get a lot of great attention.
What a story. Is there any synopsis, or do you think that you've given us all that you want to be remembered as your history and your involvement with the church, with your career? Is there anything else that we've missed?
Well, I want to say I'm thankful to Riverside for my training. I worked at Baptist for 12 years. I have done some, I call it home health. Did that on people's homes, way out in the sticks, so far out there. Lord knows if they wanted to kill me, bury me, nobody would have missed me. I've done that. Experience there. I worked at Vanderbilt for 25 years. This is my chair. I retired in 2015. Pediatric nursing, an operating room. I did 2 tours of, I went to Guatemala twice. I went to Nigeria one time. That was not with Vanderbilt, but the training that I have received helped me there.